And then she has hello, how are you? Hey, listen, I was just in Sacramento and Rockland. Let me tell you, it's warm here. Oh, I was No, just this one because there's a, people go through there and then they. Good morning, everyone. Can everybody hear me? Good morning, good morning. Well, we have a full house, which I'm very happy to see. We have a few people that I would like to introduce. As you can see, we're going to start the introductions, but I'm just going to do, if you all turn around, we have the police department here. We have the, you feel very safe. Yes, yes. I just want to say thank you. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have a full workshop to do. And I just want to say good morning to the residents of Masonic Home, residents of Acacia Creek, and our community neighbors that are here with us today. Um, I would, I have the honor to introduce Senator Aisha Wahab, representative for our district. She's here today to talk to us about some of the very important work that her office does, and then we'll hear a little bit about the police department, the UCPD afterwards. So welcome, Senator Wahab.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you. I really do appreciate you guys having us and my team here. So I am Dr. Aisha Wahab. I am the state senator for this district. And I will say that I'm very attached to this district just largely because I grew up here. And then also, in Union City in particular, I had family here, and my grandfather would always like kind of take me on AC Transit down the street to go to the store and just buy, a bag of chips. So that was like, my favorite memory just growing up here. But I kind of just wanted to at least provide you guys some background a little bit on what we do in the state senate, and I love questions and answers, so feel free to ask any questions you guys may have. But then I also wanted to make sure that you guys have the resources that you guys potentially need. So I will go over a little bit about like I said, what we've done. We're going to have a couple of different presentations, but just kind of wanted to highlight some of the work. So one of the jobs that I have is to try to elevate this district, right? Try to compete. And I want to say that there's 40 senators in the state of California. And I represent from Hayward down to San Jose, Santa Clara, Sunnyvale, Milpitas, Fremont, Union City, Newark, Hayward, and some of the unincorporated parts of Alameda County and Santa Clara County. Now, I kind of have to compete with San Francisco, getting a lot of resources, Oakland, getting resources, Los Angeles, getting resources. And I feel that I've done a pretty decent job of trying to get resources for this district. And this district is incredibly important, primarily because it is an economic hub and we are part of the Bay Area. And I often say part of the Bay Area, but we're not San Francisco, right? So, with that said, in the last 2 years, we were able to secure millions of dollars just for this district. And I want to highlight some of them. When I served as a Hayward City Council member, I started a program that our mental health residents that have mental health issues, as well as our homeless population, are, when you call 911, that they are addressed with a adequate mental health professional. And so I was able to secure an additional $1.2 million for the Hayward Heart program, which is the Hayward Evaluation and Response Teams, that basically has a mental health professional go out with a police officer and try to handle whatever's happening in an emergency, as well as $2.5 million for a youth center, and $2 million for St. Rose. As you know, St. Rose has been our safety net hospital, and it's always in the news as to it needs more money, is not working out. And Assemblymember Liz Ortega and I have worked on that significantly. The issues I largely care about is housing And the reason why I want to highlight why housing is so important is because during the economic downturn, my parents, who had a small business in Fremont, retail is the first to tank. We all stop trying to purchase things just because we're trying to save a couple extra bucks, which we're seeing again right now. And when our business tanked, we lost our home in a foreclosure. And I often say that millions of Americans that lost their home, and the big banks benefited twice. They got the influx of cash from the government because they were too big to fail. And then they also kept the asset of the home that they foreclosed on, and they resold it, right? So the big banks actually benefited, right? And there's millions of Americans that are still struggling. I'm still a renter. Even though I have a doctorate, my sister has a master's degree, we cannot purchase a home here without a big amount of cash, right? Average home is $1.4 million. Townhomes, condos, and so forth are about $750,000. So who can afford that? Our fastest growing homeless population demographic is our seniors. Really think about that for 2 seconds. The fastest demographic that is going back into the workforce are seniors. So when you guys go to Lucky's or buy groceries and so forth, who's scanning your foods, right? When you go to Denny's, who's taking your order? It's no longer the teen, that's doing a weekend job or so forth, but it is our seniors. And so with that, I genuinely try to focus on a couple of things. Definitely housing is the number one issue, and making sure that we're trying to tackle affordability. And I will say, you guys will see a lot of bills coming from myself as well as my colleagues now that we have created a affordability working group in the Senate to really tackle the issues that are the bread and butter issues of our homes, right? And that's the reason why I ran for office. It's not for any other purpose. So here are the millions of dollars that we have brought in, for evictions, for complete streets, for the California School of the Deaf. And I really want to highlight why social services matters the most to me. I actually grew up in the foster care system, right? My father was actually murdered, and both my sister and I ended up in the foster care system. It's a cold case. I was talking to the chief about it. 30 plus years later, still nothing, right? And when you grow up in the foster care system, you deeply rely on community. Regardless of which family you're placed with, when you bounce from home to home, you are exposed to different religions, different cultures, different languages. And in the Bay Area, you're exposed to a lot of people. And we always have to take care of our neighbors because we don't know what they're going through. So that is why I care so much about social services. This past year, I was able to introduce roughly more than 24 bills or so, and I was able to secure 16 bills signed by the governor. And I'm very proud of that because, as quote unquote still a freshman in the Senate, that's a big number of bills. And we had a senior package. SB 1354 was protecting seniors at all costs to make sure that there was equitable treatment of Medi-Cal residents, that they are protected from payment source discrimination at skilled nursing facilities, because different insurances pay more for those particular beds. And sometimes when family members say, hey, I need a bed for my parent or my grandparent, they're like, oh, do they have Medi-Cal? Oh, I'm so sorry, we don't have a bed available, right? That's not right, right? And especially we know that it's becoming harder and harder to take care of our loved ones. So that was signed into law. And then the continuing care retirement communities to basically allow all residents to know what their rights are when they are in a retirement center. And I think that's incredibly important because there was a lot of discriminations that were taking place. Just a very quick, overview. I'm chair of public safety on the Senate side, as well as the budget chair of public safety, judiciary, labor, transportation, a number of other issues. If you guys have watched the news and saw the governor increase CHP patrols in Oakland, I had a part in that, right? To make sure that, when there's retail thefts, when there's a high rate of crime, that we have these quick action teams that can kind of be there and focus on making sure residents are taken care of, as well as the increased attorneys in the district attorney's office to make sure that cases kind of move along. Um, that has been a big part of it, but I also just want to highlight that I introduced SB 982, which is making organized retail theft an actual crime that stays a crime. The fact that it's not is questionable to us, right? These are common sense bills, in my opinion. And I will say, as a proud Democrat, I do work with my Republican colleagues. There's not many in California. I'm just going to be very honest. However, a lot of these bills are about good policy, not about politics, right? And so, we had a AI child safety package. Sadly, there's a lot of predators online, and you guys are going to hear more about that. And oftentimes, they try to abuse children. And I had three bills regarding stopping online predators and digital identity theft and much more. I will highlight why digital identity theft is incredibly important. My father is in his 70s, roughly almost, and he's online a lot because he stays at home a lot. And there are people that try to reach out to him and impersonate celebrities and you name it. And sometimes I actually think that he sometimes believes it, and I have to talk to him that they're scamming you. And he says, "I have no money. What can they get out of me?" And I tell him that if you have a social security number, you're a citizen, and you're alive, um, they will find a way to outsmart the system, right? They will open up lines of credit in your name with your photos. Everything is public right now. Your photos, where you went to school, if you have grandchildren, the whole nine. And oftentimes we don't know how to make our pages more private. We don't know how to protect ourselves in a lot of ways. And seniors are often the first to be scammed by these new technologies out there, right? We're seeing, even when you go to the gas station, when you go to the ATM, even when you scan your credit card, people are skimming those credit cards and utilizing it. And easy, $1,000 is gone, $500 is gone. So what are you going to do by the time you figure it out? So, we also had a number of bills regarding mental health, housing. We had the first stable, affordable housing act signed into law by the governor in the nation. And again, more services for behavioral health, mental health, and social services across the board. And I do just want to highlight, some of the things that we talk about a lot of this, but I really want to highlight my team because they're here in the district. My chief of staff is here. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have other staff that are former teachers and substance abuse counselors and folks like that. So I really want to highlight that my office is really here to serve you all, right? And that is the ultimate goal that we have, is to make sure that your issues are addressed, whether it's with unemployment, whether it's with Social Security, whether it's even helping you guys with federal issues, right? Whether it's immigration or whatever the case may be. So I just want to be able to at least address some of those, things that we're working on, and kind of moving forward into, how to stay safe and secure online. So other than that, happy to take any questions you guys may have, and hopefully I can answer them. No questions, guys? Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
100 compliments. It's so much. Living here, we can call your office if we have or area.
Yes.
One thing I hesitate to mention that is that it's such a safe city and surrounding. They had a few problems at Safeway, and I noticed people have addressed it with carjackings and so forth. So this goes along with your talk today. That I saw that they put in all those blue lights, so you're very active in the city. But I just wanted to give you a compliment. That's Hall of Fame stuff.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I will say from a public safety perspective, and I was just talking to the chief that, there is a lot of areas that we can correct on our historical public safety system. That's the honest truth, right? Yet at the same time, I always try to ensure victims' rights first. At the end of the day, the whole justice system is built on protecting victims, right? And ensuring justice is served. I can speak firsthand just because of the fact that um, when somebody took my father's life, that affected my entire family. Even 30 years later, I'm still affected by it. Still no answers, still questions, still, wondering who was it, why was it, the whole nine. I highlight this because sometimes when people are trying to correct things, they don't realize that that is the core foundation of the justice system. And so there's a lot of laws that come before me, and I'm just going to be very honest that some of them are, quite frankly, stupid, right? Some, want to just increase penalties to say they did something. Some actually want to go after things like the Catholic Church, and things like that. You would be surprised how many bills come forward that don't make sense. And it's our job to kind of weed through them. It is one of the most important committees, period. And I take that very, very seriously. And there's a lot of talk and chatter in the media that's not accurate. But when we have to lock up our toothpaste, when we go to Safeway to buy toothpaste, and we can't just access, we have to call an employee to open it up. That is not a good quality of life. That is not a society that any of us really actually want to live in. And we need to crack down on these actual criminals, right? It may be small, petty theft, but it's not tolerated in our communities, and it's enough, right? So there's a balancing act there, but we try our best to ensure that there is some visibility on these issues. Any other questions? Yes. It's largely in the state. The state of California, sadly, is having a huge housing crisis, right? When we're talking about the lack of supply, but also the affordability issue. So if you're a renter, rents still go up, even though wages don't necessarily go up. People who are on fixed incomes, especially Social Security and so forth, which is largely handled by the feds, um, they don't see huge increases. They don't see 5% increases. They don't see 10% increases or 20% increases. Their wages are technically stagnant, number one. Many seniors have not saved in a 401k, a retirement plan, things like that, including my own parents, right? And when that happens, I do want to say that in the state of California, and this is a temporary law that I'd love to work on, there is a cap on rent increases across the state at 10% total, right? But whose wage grows 10% each year? Even union members, I will tell you, even our police officers do not see a 10% increase in their wage year over year. And they are union members, right? And that is a problem. We have also seen a spike in utility costs, right? You guys have seen it across the board. PG&E has, and we have very limited jurisdiction. I do want to just be very frank about that. There is a commission called the Public Utilities Commission that largely goes unchecked, right? They are appointed. And it has been a big frustration for every senator. And I think that this year we're going to probably see some work around that because we need to rein that in, right? And there is a lack of incentives for solar and trying to go a little bit more green as well. But when you see this on top of the inflation and greed, I will highlight that from 2020 to 2024, the rate of increase of goods across the board is nearly almost 20%, right? We're not looking year over year, but if you take just 2020, pre-COVID, to now, it is a huge increase, right? Your water costs more, your electricity costs more, your food costs more. And not all of that is supply chain issues. They said that during COVID, right? It made sense. But because of the profits, we're seeing problems like that. We're also seeing renters, for example, who are seeing what I call junk fees, right? So back in the day when you guys would rent, you could rent, you have free parking, and a lot of things were included in your rent. Right now, renters can never save for a home. And the reason why is they pay a monthly parking fee of nearly $200. Okay. They pay their security fee when they rent a home, but then they also, if they have a dog or a cat, they pay a security deposit for that pet and then a monthly deposit for that pet of nearly $50 or $100. And on top of that, if they have to pay online, they have to pay another fee to pay their bill online. They have to pay another fee, all these convenience fees. That is basically scamming the public, right? And it's not fair. And I'm a renter and I hate paying this. I'm going to be very honest with you guys. So, as much as possible, we're going to try to work on that. I will say President Biden has been trying to work on that. And there's a lot more we can do. So, hopefully, we're able to kind of move that. Yes.
The lender keeps selling their deed, and they don't know who to pay, and they lose their home or lose their prime loans, and lenders selling the.
So this actually just got brought to my attention just recently, to be completely honest. There is a business owner in Hayward that I've worked with when I was on council. He called me and he said his loan was sold and at a rate that is unheard of. He says, I'm a business owner. I could probably afford it, but this is not fair. Our office is limited in some of this work, right? That we're policymakers for the most part. We have tried to connect folks. For example, there has been another resident that had an HOA problem where their HOA told them by November, they were notified in September, that you have to pay $40,000 in assessment fees. And she was a first time homeowner and relatively young. She's, in her early 30s. And she says, where would I ever get $40,000? And the HOA board said that you have to refinance, most likely. You have to pay these assessments. Mind you, in the 2 years that she's owned this home, she's already paid assessments of $8,000 and $5,000 previously. She was going to take a second mortgage. And what she ended up doing is she called my office and we tried to connect her, one, with a city manager of her own city, two, with the director of housing in her city to just see, like, is this bad practice, the legalities of it, and so forth. Eventually, we escalated it to the district attorney's office. And an assistant district attorney is taking her case and reviewing it. Now, there's a number of issues here. As much as they say that there's a lot of laws since the foreclosure crisis, people always find a loophole, right? If you put enough lawyers in a room, they're going to find a loophole to find more money out of people, right? At least that's what my dad always tells me, right? And the honest truth of that is that we always have to keep catching up to, the scams that people are seeing, number one. So the more you can tell us about it, the more we can be informed and kind of highlight it. Sometimes a call from our office actually makes a difference. I will say that people are always a little scared of, when a senator gets involved. Number two is the fact that, we're seeing more and more scams and HOAs, for example, they're largely made up of regular people. They don't know how to seek and secure funding and financing for some of these big problem areas, like a new roof or irrigation issues or whatever the case may be. There are actually funding mechanisms. They just are not fully informed. So just the education of who serves on this HOA, that's incredibly important, right? And we want transparency. And you guys have heard, for example, in HOAs alone, there's a lot of people that, there is no lawn. You're in a condo, for God's sakes, and you're, supposedly have a gardener, and the gardener is the HOA president's boyfriend or something like that, right? We see that over and over in the news, right? So we are trying to curb as much of that as possible. I will say that for me, the mortgage issue is a big problem. It's also handled by the feds, which is one of the concerns I have. So anything we introduce, it's like, okay, that's not our jurisdiction. I will say that, just my personal investment in it. For example, the PMI. You guys have heard of this mortgage insurance that, if you don't have the 20%, you could pay 10% and then a PMI. I don't understand why we pay that, considering that the banks just can take your home if you can't pay it. I don't need to pay an extra $500 a month for what, right? So there's a lot of things that don't make sense for the average person, and it does not make it workable for the average person to be able to purchase a home, let alone a HOA or managed home and so forth. So there's a lot that we can do in regards to helping. Sometimes not directly in our office, but we can connect the dots for folks as much as possible.
Thank you, Senator Wahab. That concludes our Q&A. I would now like to invite Donald Hester from CISA to step up.
Thank you, guys.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Don Hester. I'm a cybersecurity advisor from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, part of the Department of Homeland Security. We just call it CISA for short, because that'll take forever to say that every time we turn around. I'm going to give you some information, some practical advice. Oh, can you hear me? Am I good? Okay. Just let you know that some of this is coming from my personal experience, and so it's not necessarily what CISA is saying that you should be doing. So I just want to give you that heads up. I want to start off by just talking about and just being cognizant of the fact that, there's a lot of scammers out there, but there's a lot of different types of, let's call them bad guys, right? Just for easy sake. We call them threat actors, but that's too serious for this crowd. Let's call them bad guys. There's a lot of different types of bad guys out there trying to do all different types of fraud and different types of things. Some of this can impact you directly, like if they're cyber criminals are trying to get to you and get your retirement funds or something like that. Or they could be actually targeting the water treatment plant to take it out so that you can't flush your toilet, right? So it's a bigger spectrum, right? There's a lot of things that can impact us, even if it doesn't impact us directly. So that's why I just wanted to say about that. We have everything from hacktivists who are trying to make usually a political statement of some sort. However, sometimes they take out critical systems that are needed. Recently, we had a transit system, a train system, where they took out the wireless connectivity for it, so that they were not able to call for emergency services for somebody that was on the train, because it was taken out. And it was hacktivists trying to make a thing. So sometimes, whether you agree with their position or not, they put somebody in life safety issue, right? So it's something that we have to protect against. We have cyber criminals. That's the typical kind that you're going to hear about, trying to take people's money. That happens all the time. I'll give you a couple examples here in the future. And then we have it all the way on the other side. We have nation states who are attempting to break into systems like the water treatment plant or into other organizations. You probably heard of ransomware, maybe. You heard that it happened at the city of Oakland, and that Patelco, another one, yes. So it happens at a lot of organizations that you rely upon for services, right? And so it's in our interest, from the federal government side, your interest, to make sure that these organizations are more cyber resilient at the end of the day. And so that's what CISA does, is to work with those organizations to help them to become more cyber resilient. There's all kinds of different types of threats, and I could stay here all day long and you would probably fall asleep, but there's all kinds of different threats that are out there that I can't address, right? So I'm going to talk about some of them that are some of the more common ones to kind of give you an idea. Raising your awareness will help protect you from being a victim, right? At the end of the day, that's what I want to make sure happens here, right? The first one, like I said, was ransomware. We've had a number of cities. Prior to coming to CISA, I worked for the city of Livermore as their cybersecurity, head of cybersecurity. They hired me after they had a ransomware incident. So that ended up taking that city about 4 months to bring back all the services so that people could go in and get their business licenses and those types of things. But typically what ransomware is, it's nothing new. It's just another form of extortion. It's just extortion on computer systems, right? They log into your computer system, they lock you out, and then they will tell you that you have to pay a ransom, otherwise they're not going to give you access back to the machine. This happens even on a personal level, where they will break into your computers and do a ransom to you. Usually they're not asking for millions of dollars because they know you don't have it, but they may ask for like $5,000, right? We've seen that. I've actually seen it where somebody's TV got hacked with ransomware and they couldn't use their TV anymore. Well, pay the ransom or go to Costco and buy another TV, I guess. I don't know. But TVs are cheap enough that I guess most people probably just replace those. But those are computer systems, and we don't always think of them as being computer systems, right? How many of you have heard of phishing? Right? Great. I'm glad that you guys have all heard about it. Now, here's the thing about phishing. It's not just emails that they send you. Sometimes it's a text message, right? You may get a text message that's maybe they leave you a voicemail and ask you to call back. And phishing comes in all different sides, different ways. Phishing is just the way of them, like fishing, just throwing out some bait and trying to get someone to bite. And so they'll call a bunch of different people hoping that somebody will answer and somebody will, fall for their story, basically. So you get this, you may even get it on social media. Some of you may or may not be in social media. You're trying to keep up with the grandkids, you're probably on social media, right? And they may send you messages on social media trying to scam you as well. So you got to be careful about that as well. So always, I like to say, you heard the thing, trust but verify. I say never trust, always verify, right? Because you don't know. And I could try to explain to you what to look for in the email address. You're not going to remember it. So just if you get an email and it says it's from your bank, go directly to your bank, either not following anything in the email, but just go directly to your bank, log in, and then check to see if they did actually send you a message, right? So that's one way to protect yourself, because if you don't use anything that's in the email, if it's a fake, then you'll catch it and you'll protect yourself from it. So those are some of the things to look out for. Anytime that they're asking you to do something very quickly, that is usually an indicator that it's some type of scam, because they're trying to hijack your brain, usually with fear and speed, try to get you to react and say yes to something that you're not supposed to. A good example, I don't know if you read this in the news or saw it on TV, but a gentleman in Concord fell for a scam when they called him up and said, hey, the scammers called him up and said, hey, we're with the federal government and somebody has committed identity theft against you and they're trying to take all your funds. We can help you with that. And so through that process, he told them, hey, what you can do is you can put your money into our federal government money system and we'll protect it for you. Yeah, exactly. Right. We all say that right now, but our brains are listening to me talk about a scam. But if you got a phone call and you were afraid that you were going to lose your life savings, you might make a different decision because of fear and because that they've got you on this thing. You have to hurry and act, right? Yes, they try to get you off guard. So that should be a red flag, right? I tell these stories all the time and people laugh and they're like, I would never fall for that. Like the FBI calling you. is the FBI called, and this happens. This happens more often than you think. FBI calling saying, "Hey, we think your computer was in a crime, but we think you're innocent, and we'd like to prove that. So please let us log into your system, and we can prove that you're innocent." The FBI doesn't work that way. What do? They show up with warrants, knocking on the door saying, "We want this information, or we're going to take it." Right? They don't call you and say, "We think you're innocent. We want to help prove you're innocent." That's not their job, right? So again, the fear, and another one that's typically used is like the IRS. You owe tax money, and we're going to send the local authorities to you. The IRS doesn't send local authorities to you. They send you forever a bunch of letters. All right, that's what's going to happen. And then if they do anything, they're going to just garnish something, right? So that's the way that they normally work. So if you get the letters, then pay attention to those. But they're not going to, send the local law enforcement after you. They have their own law enforcement that they would send out. But anyways, so scams. Other types of different scams. Think about tech support. You ever get a phone call saying it's from Microsoft or Apple and they're going to help you fix your thing? Again, that's not how they work. What do you have to do? You have to call them and stand on hold for a long time, don't you? Yeah, they're not going to call you and say, "Hey, we think something's broke. We're going to help you fix it." No, they want you to call them, right? So again, if it's a tech support scam, just don't fall for it. Just say, "Look, I got my grandson. He'll help me," or whatever, But just don't interact with folks that call you telling you that they're going to help you with that kind of stuff, unless you've called them first, right? If you called, some local place that helps you with that kind of stuff. There's lots of different types of money scams to watch out for. If they're asking you to buy gift cards for something, don't buy it. That's usually some type of money laundering type of scam. The first one here is that one I told you about that happened to the gentleman in Concord. By the way, he lost all of his retirement funds. They're all gone. And now he also owes the IRS for taking all the money out early. Now, I'm sure he'll work it out with the IRS because that was some kind of fraud that he fell for. He may have to go to court and do some other stuff, but I'm sure that will be taken care of. But still, that's your whole life savings is gone. And I don't want that to happen to anybody here. So tell all your friends, when you leave today, I'm deputizing every one of you to tell your friends about this stuff so that they don't become victims, right? Because they'll call you and they'll say, "Hey, this Nigerian prince, he's going to give me a bunch of money," and you'll say, "No, that's a scam. Don't talk to that guy." There's romance scams out there too, right? And you'd be surprised. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that they have where they'll be online. They'll look up your profile and say what you're looking for, and they'll be that perfect person. They will pretend to be that perfect person just to scam you, right? And try to get money from you. They're probably not the only person they're scamming at the time. They're probably scamming 4 or 5 other people. Sometimes they may even show up and meet with you at different locations, but then they're going to scam you. So you want to watch out for that. If you have somebody that you've met online, you've never met them in person, or even if you met them on person only once or twice, be very careful about that, especially if they ask for money. Or maybe you'll find somebody on this scam and says, "Oh, I live in Florida and I'd love to come out and see you, but I don't have any money. Can you pay for airfare?" Don't trust it, right? So watch out for those types of scams. We've had a lot of people lose quite a bit of money from those type of scams, so watch out for it. I don't make the names for this, but one of them is called a pig butchering scam. And what that is they take you for every dime you have. They go in, they figure out how to get into all of your accounts. There was a movie that they just made about this where a woman had lost everything that she owned because these scammers got in there, got all of her stuff, and she was left with nothing, right? And of course, identity theft's a part of it. Again, even if you're not online, like the senator had said, if you have a social security number and you're alive, somebody can use that information to run up a bunch of credit. Yeah, and then what ends up happening? You either have bad credit, or you have a lot of bills that you can't pay because you never applied for all that credit, right? So you got to be careful about that. And sometimes that happens, unfortunately and sad. Sometimes the perpetrator is somebody in the family. somebody already had access to your social security number. We've seen that happen as well too. So you want to be careful about that as well. The other thing is, what about the vulnerabilities in the devices that you use? How many of you have cell phones or computers or tablets or a TV that's a smart TV? All of those devices, all of them have vulnerabilities on them on a regular basis, which you either have to patch or you have to, if they don't have patches available, you have to buy a new one. And that kind of sucks as a consumer, right? Because you have a phone and then 4 years from now, they're not giving you updates to it anymore. And now it's easily broken into. So what are you supposed to do? They want you to buy a new phone. And it's unfortunate the way it is today, but that's what it is. And if you think about all of those devices, like if I go around my house and I try to count all the things I have connected to the internet, I have to start over every time because I'm like, okay, I forgot about that. I just bought a washer, a dishwasher, a microwave, and a refrigerator. I got a really great deal by buying all three together. Basically, the dishwasher is free, so I'm like, hey, that's a good deal. Every dang one of those things, I got a thing on my phone because they're all Samsungs and my phone's a Samsung. Every one of them connected to my phone without me doing anything, saying it set the device up so they can connect to the internet. And I'm like, I had a dishwasher my entire life and it never connected to the internet. And I don't know why all of a sudden it needs to, right? But now that's something else that's in your home that's now connected to the internet that's, hackers are trying to break into. And we've actually seen where the wireless routers that we have in our homes, some of those have been hacked. They were actually, China hacked a bunch of them so that they could launch attacks within the United States from inside the United States by breaking into people's home routers. How many of you update your home router? Right? Like nobody does that, right? But that's the thing. So you have to watch out for that. And what about AI, right? You probably hear about AI all the time. That's kind of a scary thing. In the old days, you used to get those scam emails and everything was misspelled and it was you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely a scam. Well, nowadays, even if English isn't their first language, they can make a perfectly crafted email using AI to fool you. They can use AI to look back at your social media accounts, if you have those, to learn about your interests, where you've been, so that when they craft an email to send you, it may say, let's say you like fishing and you went to Aruba for fishing or something like that, and 4 years ago and it saw it on your Facebook, the AI can go there, find it, and then write an email that say, hey, in Aruba when we were fishing on that boat, I finally found your phone number or your email or whatever, so I'm contacting you about that. And you're going to be like, I don't remember somebody, but I was in Aruba and I was fishing, so maybe I did. Right? So then they have some kind of edge on you. They have some background information, and they used AI to do it. And normally, if a person was doing that, it takes a lot of time. AI doesn't take a lot of time for it to do it. So what can you do about all this crazy stuff? A lot of it is what we call cybersecurity. That's a new term that we use, but it's basically security for your technology, right? That's what we're trying to do. It's important because if you don't do it, you might be a part of some of these scams or they may break into your systems. And so I want to give you 4 easy things that you can do to help protect yourself, because I give you the scary part, right? But how can you actually protect yourself? So there's a couple different things. Have those really strong passwords. Your grandkids' names or your pets' names are not good passwords, right? Especially if they use AI to look at your Facebook or something, then they can come up with a bunch of passwords using terms that you might like, right? So you want to be very careful about it. We generally recommend that you have a password that's like 16 characters long, and it's complex. And I know everybody's like, you're crazy. I totally get it. But every one of my passwords is 20 characters long, complex, and I don't know any of them. I don't. I honestly, I don't. There's no way. How many passwords do you think you have? Any clues? Anyone want to guess? 30? 50? I have 250-ish that I have to keep. I got like 40 of them are for work. Anyways, but the average American has about 100 passwords that they have to manage. Now, I want you to take that and say 16-character passwords. Don't use the same one ever again. Also, right? Now, you're all like, oh my gosh, you're crazy. No, I got something for you. But the reason why that's important is because if the bad guys ever get one of your passwords, they will try that password in every other account that you have. So if you use a password and you use it more than once, that may mean that if one of them gets compromised, it could compromise all your stuff. So you want to have different passwords for every account. That's kind of a pain. I get it. So there's these things called password managers. They're really nice. You can get them so that they're on your phone. They will auto fill in the application or the website so you don't have to remember the password. That's why I say I don't know what my passwords are. It automatically makes passwords that are complex for me. They're 20 characters long, which is more than what we need. And you may say, well, why does that have to be so long? Well, computers keep on getting faster and faster, right? You hear about that every time it gets faster. So the old idea of having an 8-character password is no longer good enough. Computers can break those in about 10 minutes. So the newer systems, they're so fast that we have to keep up with them, so our passwords have to grow in length. Problem is our brains don't get extra storage for longer passwords. So Password Manager can help you with that. The one I use is on my phone, but it is also on my computer. So all the passwords are up in the cloud. Now, some people are really smart and they'll say, well, what happens if someone gets a password to that? Yeah, all my eggs are in one basket. But you're much less likely to be a victim of that than anything else. So I just want to reduce your risk as low as I can, but it's never going to be 100% safe, right? Nothing ever is. So the other thing that you can do is turn on multi-factor authentication. What is that? Well, if you think about it, think about your door at your house. You have a deadbolt, right? That's one factor of locking your door. Another factor is maybe you have another lock that you have on the doorknob, right? Here's the thing. It's not multi-factor if you use the same key for both locks. You'd have to have two different types of keys, right? So think of it that way. Multi-factor is you have multiple ways. You have to have the password or a PIN number and something else. Usually it's like a thumbprint or a scan of your face or something like that. We call the scan of your face biometrics. So if you have a phone, highly recommend that you turn that on so that nobody can just get into your phone. People can get into your phone and do all kinds of crazy stuff because if your bank app is on there and they get access to your phone, they may be able to get access to your bank, right? So you want to have these other multi-factor authentications turned on. So turn it on, especially for your email, especially for any accounts that you have online that are money related, retirement accounts, all that stuff. You should have multi-factor authentication turned on to that, and social media, and your phone. I know it's not listed the phone, but if one of the ways, you probably gotten this from your bank, when you go to log in, it says it's going to send a text message to your phone, and then you got to type the number in. Well, if they have access to your phone, then they can get that number, right? So you want to make sure that you protect your phone as well. So multi-factor authentication with those things will help protect you. It will, I like to say, greatly reduce your risk, right? Report phishing if you can. There's a phishing email address. I think it's at the end here. But if you have like Microsoft or Apple, they usually have a way to report this as spam, report it. That lets them know that this is a bad email, and then they can look throughout their system to see if a bunch of other people are getting the same messages, and they can filter it out so that those people don't get it. So you can actually protect somebody else from accidentally clicking on something just by reporting it. So definitely report those as phishing. Some of the email systems you have don't say phishing, they just say spam. Either way, report it so that they can filter it out. If you see a phishing email, again, I think it's a good idea to report it. Don't click on anything, just delete it. After you report it, just delete it. And sometimes if you report it, it'll automatically remove it. And then you don't have to delete it, it just gets rid of it. Don't click on anything. Don't try to say, oh, I don't know, let's click on it. Just don't trust it. Like I said, don't trust it. Finally, one of the things we want you to do is update your phones. Now, I totally get this. Like, I'm standing in line at Starbucks trying to order my food, and the Starbucks app says I need to do an update. Otherwise, it won't work. And so now I have to sit there at the register updating my thing so I can pay for my darn coffee. And it always happens at the wrong time, right? So I know it's annoying, but it's really important that we do those updates, even though it's annoying, because we want to make sure that our phones are up to date, right? Because if they're not up to date, that's when the bad guys will try to break into the systems. Because sometimes they know that there's a vulnerability in the software before the manufacturer even knows that there's a vulnerability, right? And so they'll try to take advantage of it before there's even a patch. So by the time you're getting told, hey, you need to update the software, it may already be that threat actors already breaking into systems because of that. You don't want to be one of those victims. That said, just do your updates when they have to, and I know sometimes it's going to be inconvenient. That's just the way it is. In your phones, the slides will be available afterwards, right? I believe. So you can look at this. But in your phones, there's automatic updates. Just set it to an automatic updates. Make sure your apps are automatically updating as well if it's on your phone. On your computer, same thing. Make sure you're updating it. If you have a computer and it's running Windows XP, you need to get rid of it, right? That's old software. It's no longer supported. Don't use it, right? You'd be surprised. I keep on running into people that have that, and they call me and they say, "Hey, I need help with my computer." I'm like, "What are you running? Windows XP?" I'm like, "There's no help for you. You gotta get rid of it. You gotta get a new one. Sorry, that's just the way it is." And there's a lot of really good websites that you can go and check. CISA.gov. We have some resources there. We have a YouTube channel saying, again, if there's nothing on at night and you want to watch something, YouTube. You can watch and learn about other types of scams. The FBI has a website you can report things to ic3.gov. And then we have the Federal Trade Commission has a lot of great information, and the National Cybersecurity Alliance. All great websites, all have great information for you to help you protect yourselves. And since I'm here with you, any of you are members of AARP, they have a great website that has a lot of information about scams on their website as well. So check them out as well. With that, is there any questions for me?
Could you elaborate on the AI voice cloning risk?
Oh, yeah. So, great question. The question is about AI and what we call deep fakes, is what we call it, but it's cloning either people's voices or even cloning someone's face. We've seen some comedians do some of that kind of stuff where they clone somebody's face and then they say some funny stuff as that person. But in, like, I believe it was earlier this year, a finance officer for a company had got on a Zoom meeting, webinar with the board members of the company, and the board members all were telling them how they wanted him to, transfer the money to whatever account. And so they gave him authorization and the information during that Zoom meeting. The problem was on that Zoom meeting, even if there was 10 people on it, there was only one live person. The others were all fake voices, fake images of them talking, and the person fell for it and transferred the money. That's the most recent, most sophisticated one that I've heard of recently. So they basically, if you think about it, if you're a company and you have a bunch of board members or your executives, usually the website will have pictures of the executives on there. That's all they need to clone it. I mean, there's a website out there where you can take a picture of your face and they can put you in jail, or they can make all kinds of different things, you in different scenarios. And you look at it, and some of them you wouldn't know the difference. So the AI is really helping criminals to augment their abilities, right? To be able to fake out somebody and look like somebody and sound like somebody that they're not. And they're already using this technology to commit crimes. They're already doing. Yeah, yeah. So it's a great question. If someone imitates and pretends to be somebody, how do you do that? You'd have to have another means of verification from that person, either prearrange with them. If you're going to have a Zoom meeting and do some type of decisions that um, it's either a regular meeting that you know it's always happening, or follow up afterwards with that person, call them directly and say, hey, I just got off the meeting with you, just wanted to confirm before I actually do this transfer of funds that this is what you said. Then the person will be like, I never said that. What meeting? Right? So that extra step, don't trust, always verify, would really help you in that instance.
Before we move on with our Q&A, I would like to invite the Union City Police Department, and we'll have a joint Q&A with them and with Donald. If you'd like to come up to do a quick introduction?
Oh,
I have one question. Do you think that Apple app that fills in your website ID 32-bit password good enough?
so
Familiar with that one?
yeah, so the question on that one is, are the ones good enough? They're less risky than not having a password manager, having the one built into either your browser or to Apple. The problem is if you don't have an Apple desktop, you can't really, the passwords won't be there. So that's usually the third party ones that will work on Windows and on Apple and on any browser that you have are usually the better ones that I would recommend for that reason. Not because necessarily they're any less secure, but because they're more convenient and easier to use.
Hi, folks. My name is Sergeant Hayward. I'm with Union City Police Department. I'm in our community policing unit. I did work fraud for about 3 years as an investigator, and then I was in for 4 years after that, where I supervised fraud cases. So we're here to talk about any of the local stuff that you might have a question about, or anything that occurred. This gentleman has got more information than probably any of us combined at this point from a national level. But certainly, we will be here for the duration, and then afterwards, if you have something specific that you'd like to ask about from the Union City side of the house, you're welcome to come up and contact us.
Question.
Recently, I've tried to all of this. Phone calls keep coming in. Can we set that up for emails and other means? Maybe think, is there a service where we can just hire
Yeah, there are some services like that. As a federal government employee, I can't recommend any of those. But there's a number of different services. Sometimes there's ones that will help you with a lot of that, but there's not something that will do all of it, right? Like I'm not sure how you would block landline phone calls and stuff like that. I'd reach out to AT&T or Pacific Bell or somebody, whoever, and reach out to them and just ask them what they possibly could do with that. But other than that, there are plenty of organizations that can help you. And there's plenty of stuff online from these websites too that can help you. But that's going to be, you have to learn about it and then you have to go set it up, right? As opposed to hiring somebody and just say, hey, just tell me what I need to do. Most of them are probably going to advertise themselves as like IT folks or that kind of thing. I don't know that they would necessarily say cyber because I don't know that they think that the general public's going to know about that, right? So I wish I could give more help or give an example, but I can't. So
We run into some of those, and a lot of the ones we'll deal with will come from the identity theft side of the house, where they set certain protections and parameters for nature. Reality of a lot of those, just so you know, is they create sort of a false sense of security. You go and apply for a new car loan, you go and apply for certain things. As far as a profile online is right accessible for anybody. So the one thing I would say just in general, and I mean, same thing for us, recommend a company per se, is don't buy into the full safeguard and let your guard down. The information that he's talking about in terms of paying attention to these phishing emails, those kinds of things, there's just really no way to completely prevent that access if you have some sort of online profile. Anything that you're using pretty regularly, every time you subscribe for a new service, the amount of information sharing and the amount of new emails that that will generate and new contacts that will generate are excessive. And you see it on the news virtually every other day that somebody's had a major data breach and all your passwords and all your information may have been compromised. So it is a constant fight that you should be vigilantly be paying attention. It's going to basically echo very much what you've already had here today in terms of the online stuff. For the folks here at the Masonic Home, for the most part, you're very, very safe. You're excluded from the general public for the most part in terms of being safely removed up here on the hill. So really the only access to scam our seniors up here is either calling you on the phone or getting you through computer access or your cell phone access. So you have a lot of protections that are already sort of built in just by limiting the public access to you up here. For our community members, one of the crime trends that we're seeing significantly right now, pretty much all over the Bay Area and the greater California areas, we have these folks that are sort of nomadish that are coming up on seniors that are walking the streets and doing jewelry swaps. We're seeing that regularly. We've had several of them here in Union City. We've seen them all over the Bay Area where they will come up and they will talk to this nice young lady here and hi ma'am, this and this, and your earrings are so nice, and they'll talk to her for a second and they'll wind up swiping her earrings, her necklace, her bracelets off her wrist while replacing them with something that they have just brought up. They're very quick with sleight of hand. They like to focus on seniors because the fact that seniors have a more trusting nature in general and will be conversational. And they're coming up and exchanging, pleasantries long enough to be able to confuse the person that they're talking to and walk away with their $10,000 watch or their $10,000 necklace while leaving costume jewelry behind. So we are seeing that significantly. When you do your excursions and you aren't at the home, I would encourage you to travel with somebody else. They typically will come up and contact single persons that are by themselves. That's just good generalized safety information for anyone is to travel in pairs. People don't like to come up and assault, rob, and do all those kinds of things when there's multiple witnesses around. Single persons, it's a lot easier to be able to perpetrate that stuff. And the fact that you have two of you there, maybe if somebody's being very trusting, the other person says, remember what they told you back at that thing? Let's not be quite so much and let's just go about our shopping at this point. So that's kind of what we're dealing with for the most part. In terms of the internet, the phishing, and those kinds of things, those kind of run their course all the time. There are times where they seem to be hot topics, like somebody comes up with a new trend, and we saw like the tax, during tax season, we see a ton of the tax scams. Right after taxes are filed, we'll start having people that call us and say, hey, I think I made a mistake. I went to the store and I bought $2,000 worth of Green Dot gift cards and I wired them, or Apple, the ones that always kill me. And I ask myself every time how is when they go buy like Apple Music cards and they transferred all the Apple credits. The reason that they pick some of these different entities is once that transfer is completed, it's very hard for law enforcement to do any sort of tracking or reversing of those funds. That's why they specifically request those things. If they told you transfer your money into their bank account, that is usually something that we can write warrants and we can follow up through. We can at least make some attempt to be able to track those accounts. But for the average knucklehead that's not really that sophisticated as a criminal, they just go with the gift cards. The gift card balances are transferred into another account. They're virtually untraceable, especially with Apple. Apple is really, really difficult, and they protect your information, they say, but at the exact same time, they protect the suspects like you wouldn't believe. They are constantly creating technology that makes their phones uncrackable. and for this stuff to be really, really difficult to track, which in theory should protect you, but at the exact same time, it's be able to do those follow-ups. And if you have something specific offline, we could talk about it too. If there's something that you want to ask about, feel free to follow up.
Hello. Whose job is it to protect the mail carriers? Is it the city police going through the city or the state, or who can protect them?
That's a good question.
I mean, they have their own police departments to investigate issues that come up, but realistically, our job is to protect everybody in Union City. So whatever workers, whatever citizens, whatever any folks are in the geographical boundaries of our city, that's our job. So if our mail carriers are delivering mail and get robbed here in our city, there may be a parallel investigation that their own investigative entity wants to be involved with. There are federal type crimes that are involved with that, but we would still be the investigation or the investigating entity that would go out and initially make that contact, protect that person, take those statements, and generate the initial investigation. Does that answer your question? I have one right here.
I have caller ID, and so far, so good.
So the caller ID is great. Most cell phones, when you get a call now, it's going to tell you who's calling you. For the most part, you're probably pretty safe as far as that goes. And if you get something that says on my phone when it rings now, it says spam risk, and I just send that to voicemail or get rid of it for the most part. I think there's benefits in that, but just imagine when we're talking about AI and we're talking about the ability to spoof someone's face now and have somebody talk to you in their voice and appearing to be it. They're always making advances, and the last thing you want is for somebody that's been able to spoof the number of your daughter and send you that message where your caller ID says your daughter's calling, and you're now talking to somebody that isn't your daughter and you weren't even aware of it. So just don't get overly reliant on technology. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, stick with the fact that it's probably wrong. Nobody that's a legitimate entity, if you say, hey, I'm a little uncomfortable with this, I'd like to run this by somebody, is going to start screaming and yelling at you and get upset or bully you at that point. And if they do, I can darn sure tell you it's probably a scam right from the get-go.
Yeah, I would add to that they can spoof numbers. And when I worked at the city of Livermore, we had a problem with it. Somebody was calling saying they were from Livermore PD, but they weren't. But the phone number was Livermore PD's that showed up on the caller ID. The thing is, if you call that number, it does go actually to Livermore PD, right? But when it showed up on your caller ID, it did not. It said it was calling from that number and it wasn't. So again, never trust, always verify. So if somebody calls, you say, I'll call you right back. If you really are from Union City PD, you'll call them right back and you'll get them, right?
Union City PD will never call you and ask for any funds via the phone. We do, I mean, our POA and different things, we have philanthropic causes, but those will come through mailings, those will come face to face. Those are those kinds of presentations we do. You don't have somebody calling. When they call you and say, oh, I'm from the PD, and you've got our number there, we're collecting donations for our police ball. I don't know what police ball is. We haven't had those since 1985. So that is not happening from us. That is not something that's coming from us. You will not get solicitation like that. If you ever have a question, you can pick up the phone and call and ask for us or the association. We'll be happy to answer those questions. And we have a couple folks here from our Union City IT division. They're going to come up and talk to you, Mario Vallejo. I'm going to have him come. Oh, and then I've got one more gentleman. They're going to come up and talk to you guys a little bit about some of the IT stuff from the city side of the house.
Yeah, I won't be talking about the IT stuff per se, but for 1 second. Everyone.
Not in my slides.
What's your password?
Where's my slides?
All right. No hacking involved. Hi, everyone. I'm Dwayne Vale. I'm the cybersecurity manager here for Union City. My boss over there, Mario Vallejo, he's the director of IT. And anything, Mario, you want to say you're the boss? If you want to come up here and need anything, go right ahead. I was given 10 minutes to talk. Normally, my minimum is an hour. So I'll try and make this really quick in about 10 minutes. I do like talking with seniors. I had a session last year with the Ruggieri Senior Center that went off very well. With a company I used to work for, we were partnering with an organization called Stay Safe and Connect online that made videos for seniors. Anybody ever hear of Mom Don't Click That video? They're very good. And if you get a chance, they're on YouTube that are still available. But what's really nice about them is they're basically seniors talking about incidents that they've had. So they share their experience. They're very, very informative. And if you get a chance, definitely take a look for those. All right, I'm going to be talking about 6 non-technical tips that you can use to help avoid scams. Everybody know what non-technical means? It means easy. And if you're like me, you need easy. I will only be sharing 6. I'm only going to be sharing 6. If this was an hour, I'd be sharing at least 10. So maybe next time I'll share more with you. The first one, realize you're being targeted. If you haven't come to the conclusion from listening to Don and the police department, you're being targeted. Everybody here is being targeted. Businesses are being targeted. Unfortunately, the prime targets of the bad actors or the cyber criminals are seniors and kids, which is really important. So seniors, we need to stay very vigilant. We need to make sure that if we're communicating with someone, we know who they are, and we're cautious about any information that we share. We were talking about AI a little bit ago. If you ever have a call, you answer a telephone call, and there's no one there, so you're hello, hello, can I help you? That ever happened to everybody, and no one ever answers? There's a scam that's going on right now where those are AI-based calls. They're recording your voice. It only takes 10 to 15 seconds now for them to hear your voice and be able to replicate your voice and use it in AI technology. So be cautious. Even answering a phone, I get so many robocalls. I turn my phone off. It drives my wife crazy. So she's making decisions now without talking to me about it, which explains why we have a new puppy. But definitely be cautious about who you're communicating with. Another thing, and I'll talk a little bit more about this to realize, is that this is a business for a lot of these organizations. A lot of the people that are engaged with fraud and scams, they're in other countries that are very tolerant. They have legal systems that are very tolerant of cybercrime, and they basically they're available to get away with it in these countries. It's like a business. They have retirement plans, patient plans, and many of them don't even know that they're involved with doing scam opportunities because these organizations are so good. Always think, that the person you may be communicating with is it's a business for them. There's nothing personal. 2, second thing, understand that you are in control. Scammers don't have anything. They may have some information that they gathered online, but if they had everything that they need to be calling you or contacting you. So always be cautious and always recognize that if you're talking to someone, you're communicating with someone online, you don't know who they are, you're feeling uncomfortable, just say no. Just hang up. If they're legitimate, they'll understand. If they're not legitimate and they're the scammers, the bad actors, remember what I said, it's a business for them. They're going to forget about you. They're going to go on to someone else. So you're watching TV, your favorite television show, you're getting comfortable, you get a call from someone that says, hey, I've got this great financial opportunity for you. Don't even, if you're busy doing something else, say, I don't have time for it, and hang up. You get a call that says, hey, I've got long lost grandkids for you that want to get in contact for you. Be aware of something like that, and don't even give it the time to respond to it. Just say no. Don't want to talk to you. If you got something to send something to me. I'll review it, and then if it's interesting, I'll get back. But always remember, you're in control of what you provide to the scam. I did when I was doing a session yesterday or last year. One of the seniors said, "Well, I don't want to be rude and offend anybody." And I said, "No, you have to be rude. You have to be. Don't worry about offending people. The legitimate people will understand. Scammers will move on to someone else." All right, next thing, avoid unverified people and groups. Don talked about this is really good. So we only want to communicate online or over the telephone or texting with organizations, with people, groups that we know or that we verify. If you don't know and it sounds interesting, we'll take the time to verify it. If you're getting information from an organization, you're not sure if they're legitimate, ask for their telephone number, call up the legitimate telephone number, find out if they are legitimate and what they're doing is legitimate. But don't trust anybody without verifying who they actually are and what they're actually. Next one, close unneeded accounts and groups that are online. I've got a couple brothers, older brothers, and they were bugging me like, "God, what can I do to stop all these emails coming in?" They get like 200, 300 emails every other day that they're getting, and they're not that popular. But they get a ton of emails, and I'm like, "Well, what kind of groups do you subscribe to?" "Oh, we're in these sports groups. We're in these other groups." I'm like, "Well, what? You got to close down these accounts and these groups that you have because that's what a lot of the scam artists, the bad actors are doing. They're going into these groups. A lot of these groups will sell your information, even if they're legitimate, but they'll find information that's part of these groups, and they'll use that to generate email lists for you to send you emails. So if you have online accounts that you're not using, go ahead and close them out. If you're in groups, chat groups, or other kind of communication groups that you don't really use, go ahead and end those. You'll find that your emails and your propensity to get bad text messages or telephone calls is going to go down dramatically. Yes.
Emails. Does unsubscribe work, or is it a waste?
You mean like the unsubscribe button?
Yeah.
It depends, and that's the key. If it's a legitimate email, it will work. If it's not a legitimate email, what you'll find is that unsubscribe link is actually a link to malware. Right. So exactly. So for me, what I do is I generally, unless it's a legitimate organization, it's a legitimate email that I can tell, I won't click the unsubscribe button. I'll just start automatically deleting the emails as they come in. Good question, though. Fifth one, know the warning signs. So there's several warning signs. Again, if this was the hour session, it'd be a lot more, but these are some of the key ones to think about. If you get an email, a text, a call from someone you've never heard of before, you're not familiar with the organization, or you weren't expecting a call, that's a big warning sign. Someone may be trying to scam. So again, use due caution. If you're like me, I generally don't talk to people unless it's something I initiate. So I generally just hang up on people. Not my wife though. I don't hang up on people. Let's see, the demands, and Don spent some time talking about this. The demands to act now, there's a sense of urgency. We're saying, hey, we're monitoring your laptop. We're seeing, malware, incidents. Help give us access to your computer. We'll clear it all up for you. You got to do it now. Or, hey, this sale's only lasting through the end of the day. Those are the types of things that you want to avoid, creating that sense of urgency. That's a big one. Emails, messages, that have links and attachments with them. Those are a big warning sign for me. Again, if it's not an organization I'm familiar with, or even if it is, I generally won't respond to those because a lot of them are so be cautious with any link or any email or text that has a link. Any requests for gift cards, money, any request for information about your passwords, your access to your computers, personal data, family data, that kind of stuff is a big warning sign. And for me, I don't share that kind of information with anybody. I had a call, just the other day where someone was saying, "Hey, I can help with your financial situation." I'm like, "How do you know what my financial situation is?" "Well, just give us this information." Like, well, no, I'm not going to be giving you this information. A lot of this again, it's a business for them, so they have a script that they go through. If you make it difficult for them, they tend to be looking for opportunities. The more difficult you make it for them, they're just they're more likely they're just going to move on to someone else. Often, if I get a call that I don't like, I'll say, "Hold on 1 second." I'll put the phone down and see how long they stay on. Most of them will stay on about 15 seconds. Let's see. Access to computers. Never give access to your computer to anybody, no matter what the cause is, unless you're 100% sure that it's legitimate. And then, many of these are entities. Cyber criminals are outside the U.S., so they may have quotas that they need to meet because, again, this is very much like a business for them. So they may start using kind of intimidation tactics, offensive, language, that type of thing. And if you see that happening, then you can tell right off it's not legitimate. Legitimate businesses don't talk that manner. So again, it's a big red flag. Avoid those types of interactions altogether. Anybody have any of these? Experienced any of these types of warning signs? Yeah, one, two, any? I bet you all have, but you just will be a little shy raising your hand. The last one, and then this is my sixth one. Visit Union City's cybersecurity webpage. We do have a webpage. Here's a QR code, and we have some links in the back there as well. That's a good guide for seniors, for families, for businesses, everybody, all the residents of Union City, to help get information about current types of scams, things to look out for. If you do get an incident, where to report things to, like cyberbullying, there's links and information about where to report those types of incidents. And also, as our state senator was mentioning, a lot of seniors are going back into the workforce. I do have educational links, so if you want to get into cybersecurity, there's some links. They'll take you to some courses if you want to learn more about cybersecurity and maybe get a second career. All right, with that, that concludes my quick presentation, but thank you very much. And we'll be around for more questions.
My name is Crystal Rain. I'm the Community Resource Coordinator for Union City Police Department. We are at our ending time for the presentation today. However, we will still be available. People are interested in having, or we can answer questions in front. We'd like to take a picture with Senator. So what I'd like to say also, thank you to the office of Senator Dr. Aisha Wahab and their connections with Mr. Hester for the cybersecurity information that was shared. And we thank our Union City IT department who also shared very good information. And of course, Union City PD who helped to coordinate the event with Soledad Martinez, Executive Director of Masonic. So it's in partnership, and this is what our police department likes to do. Be in partnership with our community stakeholders and bring information and education to us. We can invite Senator to.
Some of the residents can stand up.
If you're okay with social media, and would like to be part of it.
Projector, that would be
We invite all the participants and speakers to come up to the front for the photo.
Community neighbors, we have shuttles outside. They can take you back down to your vehicles.
Yes, yeah, we want to turn it off, right?